Me. Here we go. Okay. Hey everyone, how's it going? Hope you all have or had a great Tuesday. Well, today we're going to be taking a look at the Hammer Dracula films with Dracula, Prince of Darkness. So, without further ado, here we go. A prologue replays the final scenes from Dracula, in which Dr. Van Helsing destroys Dracula by driving him into the sunlight. These scenes are accompanied by a voice-over narration that describes how Van Helsing, a scholar of vampirism, was able to end Dracula's century-long reign of terror and destroy his cult. Only the memory of Dracula's evil remains. The main story begins as Father Sandor prevents local authorities from disposing of a woman's corpse as if it were a vampire. Sandor chastises the presiding priest for perpetuating the fear of vampirism and reminds him that Dracula was destroyed 10 years previously. Sandor visits an inn and warns 4 English tourists, the Kents, not to visit Carlsbad. They ignore his advice. Oh gee, I wonder what's going to happen to them. As night approaches, the Kents find themselves abandoned by their fear-stricken coach driver 2 kilometers from Carlsbad, and in view of a castle. A driverless carriage takes them to the castle, where they find a dining table set for 4 people and their bags unpacked in the bedrooms. A servant named Clove explains that his master, the late Count Dracula, ordered that the castle should always be ready to welcome strangers. After dinner, the Kents settle in their rooms. Later that night, Alan investigates the noise and follows Clove to the crypt, where Clove kills him and mixes his blood with Dracula's ashes, reviving the Count. Clove entices Helen to the crypt, where she becomes Dracula's first victim. Yeah, I bet Dracula was pretty thirsty after all that time. The next morning, Charles and Diana find no trace of Alan, Helen, or Clove. Charles takes Diana to a woodsman's hut, and then he returns to the castle to search for Alan and Helen. Clove tricks Diana into returning to the castle. Charles finds Alan's dismembered body in a trunk in the crypt. It is now dark, and Dracula rises. Diana meets Helen, but Helen has become one of the undead and she attacks her. Dracula enters and warns Helen away from Diana. Charles struggles with Dracula until Diana realizes her crucifix is an effective weapon against vampires. Charles improvises a larger cross and drives Dracula away. They escape from the castle in a carriage, but lose control on the steep roads. The carriage crashes and Diana is knocked unconscious. Charles carries her for several hours through the woods until they are rescued by Father Sandor, who takes them to his abbey. Good idea. Clove arrives at the monastery in a wagon carrying 2 coffins, bringing Dracula and Helen, but is denied admission by the monks. Ludwig, a patient at the abbey, is enthralled to Dracula and invites the Count inside. Helen convinces Diana to open the window and let her in, claiming to have escaped Dracula. Liar! Liar! Diana does, and Helen bites her arm. Dracula drags Helen off as he wants Diana for himself. Charles bursts into the room and drives the vampires out. Sandor sterilizes the body with the heat from an oil lamp. What, there was no holy water nearby? Sandor puts silver crucifixes in the 2 coffins to prevent the vampires from coming back. He then captures Helen and drives a stake through her heart, killing her. Ludwig then lures Diana into Dracula's presence, where the Count hypnotizes her into removing her crucifix. Dracula coerces her to drink his blood from his bare chest, but Charles returns in time to prevent it, forcing Dracula to flee with the unconscious Diana. Charles and Sandor arm themselves and follow on horseback. A shortcut allows them to get in front of Dracula's wagon and stop it. Carl shoots Clove, who apparently removes Sandor's crucifixes from the coffins, but the horses gallop off to the castle. Diana is rescued, while Dracula's coffin is thrown onto the icy moat. Charles attempts to kill the vampire, but Dracula springs out of his coffin and attacks him. Diana and Sandor shoot and break the ice, and Dracula sinks into the freezing waters. And he was never heard or seen from again. If only that were the case. Anyway, let's look at some production notes here. Dracula does not speak in the film, save for a few hisses. According to Christopher Lee, and I quote, "I didn't speak of that picture. The reason is very simple. I read the script and I saw the dialogue. I said to Hammer, if you think I'm going to say any of these lines, you're very much mistaken." End quote. Screenwriter Jimmy Sankster disputed that account in his memoir Inside Hammer, writing that, quote, "Vampires don't chat, so I didn't write him any dialogue." Christopher Lee has claimed that he refused to speak the lines he was given. So you can take your pick as to why Christopher Lee didn't have any dialogue in the picture, or you can take my word for it. I didn't write any, end quote. The film was written into a novel by John Burke as part of his 1967 book, the second Hammer horror film omnibus. The film was made back-to-back with Rasputin the Mad Monk, using many of the same sets and cast, including Lee, Shelley, Matthews, and Farmer. Shelley later remembered accidentally swallowing one of her fangs in one scene, and having to drink salt water to bring it back up again because of the tight shooting schedule, as well as there being no spare set of fangs. I guess that means the fang budget wasn't really that high. The film was released to some markets on a double feature with The Plague of Zombies. Plastic vampire fangs and cardboard zombie eyes glasses were distributed to the audience members as a gimmick. Oh yeah, I wonder how they enjoyed that. Anyway, this movie is pretty good, and unlike last one, unlike the previous film, it doesn't have a misleading title, so there's that. So, overall, I give Dracula, Prince of Darkness 4 jack-o'-lanterns out of 5. Well, join me tomorrow as we discover that Dracula has risen from the grave. Oh no! So, until tomorrow, peace.